The derelict floated in the silence between stars. Commander Zithra of the Calthrine Expeditionary Fleet had seen dead ships before. Hulk stripped by raiders. Wrecks twisted by asteroid collisions. Even the haunting shells left behind after plague ships were abandoned to the void. But this one was different. The human vessel hung motionless against the black, its hull scarred but intact. No distress beacon. No radiation signatures. No signs of structural failure. Just silence. "Scans complete, Commander," her sensor officer reported, his crest feathers flattening in unease. "Life support systems are still operational. Fusion reactor running at 17%. Emergency lighting active in multiple sections." Zithra's four eyes narrowed. "Operational? Then why no communications?" "Unknown. The ship's name translates as USSV Perseverance. Registry indicates it was a deep space research vessel. Crew complement." He paused. 43 humans. Was. The ship has been adrift for approximately 2 standard cycles. No distress calls logged. No debris field. "Commander." He turned to face her, his translator struggling with his next words. "There are no bodies on the thermal scan. But the ship's internal sensors show movement." A chill ran down Zithra's spine. She had commanded salvage operations for 12 seasons. She knew the look in her crew's eyes, the ancient prey animal fear that transcended species. Her people had evolved on a world of predators. They understood danger. "Movement," she repeated slowly. "Define movement." "Sporadic. Corridors 7 through 12. Engineering Bay 2. But Commander, the thermal signatures don't match human biology. They're cold. And they're not following standard patrol patterns." Zithra glanced at the view screen. The human ship looked so ordinary. Utilitarian design. Function over form. The humans were known for that, practical to a fault, building their vessels like tools rather than works of art. But everyone in the galactic community had heard the stories. Humans were newcomers, barely 200 cycles since first contact. They were weak compared to most species. No natural armor, no claws, no venom. They couldn't survive in hard vacuum like the Torvians or process radiation like the Helex. They were soft, fragile things that needed constant temperature regulation and died if their atmosphere dropped below certain oxygen levels. Yet they had somehow clawed their way to the stars through sheer stubborn determination. And they were strange. "Recommendations?" Zithra asked her crew. "Standard salvage doctrine suggests we report and move on," her second officer said quickly. "Human vessels have been flagged as unpredictable. We're not equipped for." "We're not leaving survivors," Zithra cut him off. "If there's even a chance someone is alive on that ship, we have an obligation under rescue protocols. Assemble a boarding team. Full environmental suits. Armed but with strict rules of engagement. I want toxicity scans, radiation checks, and biological hazard protocols in place." Her crew exchanged glances but moved to obey. 20 minutes later, Zithra stood in the airlock with 3 of her best. Sergeant Kelvin, a hulking Vross warrior whose species had mastered combat long before spaceflight. Dr. Mira, a delicate fleen whose people had perfected medicine across 1,000 worlds. And Ensign Torque, young but sharp, his curiosity outweighing his common sense. "Remember," Zithra said as the airlock cycled open, "humans are unpredictable. Their ships reflect that. Stay together. Trust your sensors. And if anything seems wrong, anything at all, we extract immediately." The docking tunnel extended, magnetic clamps locking onto the human ship's hull with a metallic clang that echoed through the silence. The outer door was already open. "Commander," Kelvin rumbled, his weapon sweeping the corridor beyond. "The door should have been sealed. Emergency protocols would have." "I know," Zithra whispered. They entered. The corridor was dark except for flickering red emergency lights that cast everything in shades of blood. The walls were smooth metal, covered in human script. Warning signs. Directional markers. Safety protocols printed in that strange angular language they favored. "Life support is active," Dr. Mira reported, checking her handheld scanner. "Oxygen levels are slightly low but breathable. Temperature is odd. It keeps fluctuating. 20 degrees, then 15, then back to 20. Reactor malfunction?" Torque suggested. "No. The system is responding to something. Like it's trying to accommodate." She trailed off. "Accommodate what?" Zithra demanded. Before Mira could answer, a sound echoed through the corridor. Tup, tup, tup. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Growing closer. Kelvin's weapon snapped up. Contacts. Multiple. Moving from Section 7. The tapping grew louder. It wasn't the sound of boots on metal. It was something else. Something harder. Sharper. Then they saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the corridor. It was humanoid in shape but wrong in every way that mattered. It wore the tattered remains of a human uniform, but the body beneath was twisted. Too thin. Too angular. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, and when the emergency lights flickered across its face, Zithra saw empty eye sockets that somehow still seemed to see them. Its jaw hung open, revealing teeth that had grown too long, too sharp. And it smiled. By the ancestors, Mira breathed. What did they do? The thing that had once been human raised one hand. Its fingers were elongated, the nails grown into black claws that scraped against the wall as it moved. Tap, tap, tap. Behind it, more figures emerged from the darkness. Zithra's blood turned to ice. They weren't survivors. And they weren't quite dead. Fall back, Zithra commanded, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. Slowly. No sudden movements. The creatures stopped advancing. They stood in the flickering red light, swaying slightly as if moved by an invisible current. There were 5 of them now, all wearing the remnants of human uniforms. All twisted into something that defied nature. Kelvin kept his weapon trained on the nearest one. Commander, I have clear shots. Permission to hold fire, Zithra hissed. We don't know what we're dealing with. Dr. Myra's scanner was chirping frantically. Commander, these readings, they're impossible. The biological signatures are human but also not. There's neural activity, but it's distributed throughout the entire body, not just the brain. And the temperature, they're generating heat internally, then venting it. That's why the ship's systems keep fluctuating. Are they alive? Torque whispered. I don't know, Mira admitted. By every definition I know they should be dead. But they're moving. They're aware. There. The nearest creature's head snapped toward them with mechanical precision. Its jaw worked silently as if trying to remember how to speak. Then, impossibly, it did. Leave. The word was barely human. A rasping whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Zithra's translator struggled with it, feeding her competing interpretations. Depart. Flee. Escape. Run. We're here to help, Zithra said, fighting to keep her voice calm. We detected your ship. We thought there might be survivors. The creature's head tilted farther, nearly 90 degrees. Its empty eye sockets fixed on her. Survivors, it repeated. Then something that might have been a laugh rattled from its throat. Yes, we survived. What happened to you? Zithra asked. What happened to this ship? The creature's smile widened impossibly. Its jaw unhinged like a predator's. We found something. In the dark. Between the stars. We brought it back. It raised one clawed hand, gesturing vaguely behind them. We thought we could study it. Understand it. Control it. Control what? Dr. Mira stepped forward despite Kelvin's warning growl. What did you find? The creature's attention shifted to her. For a moment, something almost human flickered across its ruined face. Recognition. Pity. Don't go deeper, it whispered. Don't go to the lab. Don't look at what we found. Don't let it see you. Behind it, the other creatures began to move. Not forward, but sideways, pressing themselves against the walls as if trying to make space. As if something was coming. A new sound echoed through the corridor. Not tapping this time. Something heavier. What? Like meat being dragged across metal. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Commander, Kelvin's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. We need to leave. Now. But Zithra couldn't move. She stared at the creature before her, at the warning in its empty eyes, and understood. These humans hadn't just died. They had been transformed. Changed into something that could survive in conditions that should have killed them. And whatever had done it was still on this ship. How many of you are left? She asked quietly. The creature's smile faded. All of us. None of us. We're here. We'll always be here. Guarding. Keeping it contained. You're keeping something locked in your own ship? Someone has to. The creature's voice cracked. For just a moment, Zithra heard the echo of the person it had been. Frightened. Determined. Human. We tried to destroy it. Tried to jettison it. Tried to burn it out. But it wouldn't die. So we adapted. Became what we needed to be. To keep it here. To keep it from spreading. The wet dragging sound grew louder. Go! The creature suddenly shrieked, its voice distorting into something that made Zithra's translator scream in protest. The other creatures joined in, a chorus of inhuman warning. Get off this ship. Forget you saw us. Forget we existed. Zithra grabbed Dr. Myra's arm and pulled her back. Move. Everyone back to the ship. They ran. Behind them, the creatures didn't follow. Instead, they turned to face whatever was coming from deeper in the ship. Zithra risked a glance back and saw them forming a line, their twisted bodies blocking the corridor, protecting the boarders from something worse than themselves. The team burst through the airlock. Kelvin slammed the emergency release, and the docking tunnel detached with explosive force. Through the viewport, Zithra watched the human ship recede. In the flickering emergency lights, she could see movement in the corridors. Shadows moving against shadows. The creatures were fighting something, though she couldn't see what. Commander, her pilot's voice crackled over the comm, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from that vessel. Multiple containment fields are active in the lower decks. Whatever they're holding down there, it's trying to break free. Zithra stared at the derelict. At the tomb those humans had made of their own ship. Mark this location as a hazard zone, she ordered. Class Omega quarantine. No ships are to approach within 10 million kilometers. Automated warning buoys to be deployed immediately. What about the humans? Torque asked. Shouldn't we report this to their government? They might be able to. No. Zithra's voice was hard. Those humans made their choice. They're guarding something. Containing it. We're going to respect that sacrifice by making sure no one else makes their mistake. She turned from the viewport, but not before seeing one final thing. The creature that had spoken to them stood at a window, watching them leave. It raised one clawed hand in what might have been a wave. Or a warning. Or a goodbye. Set course for the nearest relay station, Zithra commanded. Full burn. And someone check our hull for contamination. I want every molecule of that ship scrubbed from our systems before we dock anywhere. Her crew scrambled to obey. But as they accelerated away from the ghost ship, Zithra couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them. Not physically, but in her mind. In her dreams that would come later. The memory of empty eye sockets that still saw. Of a smile too wide for any face. Of humans so determined to protect the galaxy that they had sacrificed their very humanity. And somewhere in the dark, the USSV Perseverance continued its eternal drift, its transformed crew standing watch over horrors that should never see the light of any star. 3 weeks later, Zithra sat in the sterile briefing room of Command Station Meridian, facing a panel of admirals from 7 different species. The recording of their boarding operation played on loop behind her, frozen on the image of that first creature's impossible smile. You're asking us to seal off an entire sector, Admiral Corvin said, his mandibles clicking in disapproval. Based on what? Deteriorated crew members and vague warnings? Commander, do you understand the economic impact? I understand that 43 humans turned themselves into that, Zithra interrupted, pointing at the screen, to contain something they considered worse than death itself. I understand that whatever is on that ship tried to breach containment while we were aboard. And I understand that those humans are still there, still fighting, still keeping it locked away. Ridiculous, said Admiral Thress, a crystalline being whose species viewed emotion as a weakness. The logical action is to send a properly equipped research team. Study the phenomenon. Understand it. Perhaps even weaponize. No. The word came from the back of the room. Everyone turned. A human stood in the doorway. Captain Sarah Chin, according to her uniform insignia. Her face was weathered, her eyes hard. Behind her stood 2 human Marines in full combat gear. Captain Chin, Corvin began, this is a closed session. We've been monitoring your discussions, Chin said, walking to the front of the room without asking permission. The Perseverance was one of ours. And Commander Zithra is right. That sector needs to be sealed. Permanently. She placed a data chip on the table. This contains everything humanity knows about the Perseverance mission. It's not much. The ship went dark 6 months into a routine survey of uncharted space. We sent 3 recovery teams. None returned. The last transmission we received was... She paused, her jaw tight. 7 words. Don't come for us. We're already gone. The room fell silent. We thought it was pirates, Chin continued. Or a reactor failure that drove them mad. We never imagined. She looked at the frozen image of the transformed crew member. Dr. James Park. Xenobiologist. He had 2 children. Maria Santos. Chief engineer. She was going to retire next year. I knew every person on that ship. Her voice cracked just slightly. Then hardened again. They chose to become that. To transform themselves. To stand guard for eternity over something so dangerous they couldn't risk letting it escape. That's not contamination. That's not madness. That's sacrifice. Zithra felt a shiver run through her. She had seen many species face death. But this was different. This was humans choosing a fate worse than death for the sake of others. What did they find? Dr. Mira asked quietly from her seat beside Zithra. Chen's expression went blank. We don't know. The transmissions were corrupted. But in the final log entry, Dr. Park described it as ancient. Patient. Hungry. He said it didn't kill them. It offered them something. A choice. Evolve or die. Become its servants or its food. And they chose neither, Zithra said softly. No. They chose option 3. They used their own research against it. Transformed themselves just enough to survive, but retained enough humanity to resist. To fight. To contain. Chen looked around the room. My species has a saying. From hell's heart I stab at thee. Those people are living that. Forever. Admiral Thress leaned forward. If this entity is as dangerous as you claim, why not destroy the entire ship? A fusion warhead would. We tried, Chen said flatly. Twice. Both times the weapons malfunctioned before impact. Guidance systems failed. Detonators refused to fire. Whatever is on that ship, it can affect technology from a distance. The only thing containing it is human will. Human stubbornness. Human refusal to give up, even when giving up would be mercy. She looked directly at Zithra. Commander, you did the right thing. Thank you for honoring their sacrifice. For not trying to rescue them. They don't want rescue. They want to be left alone to do their duty. Zithra nodded slowly. What will humanity do? We're establishing a permanent watch station at the edge of the quarantine zone. 3 ships, rotating crews, orders to destroy anything that tries to leave. We'll stand guard over our people while they stand guard over the galaxy. For how long? Asked Admiral Corvin. Chen's smile was bitter. Forever if necessary. That's what humans do. We're stubborn that way. The meeting concluded with the sector officially declared off-limits. As the admirals filed out, Chen approached Zithra. Commander, I need to ask you something. When Dr. Park spoke to you, did he seem to be in pain? Zithra thought back to those empty eye sockets, that too wide smile. But also to the moment of humanity that had flickered through. The warning. The concern for strangers. No, she said honestly. He seemed determined, purposeful. He knew what he was doing and why. He just wanted us to leave before we complicated things. Chen nodded, blinking rapidly. Good. That's good. Thank you. As the human captain walked away, Zithra called out. Captain Chen? Why do you think they didn't just abandon ship? Use the escape pods? Save themselves? Chen stopped and looked back. Because that's not who we are, Commander. We're the species that runs into burning buildings to save strangers. That throws ourselves on grenades to protect our squad. That stands between monsters and innocents even when we're hopelessly outmatched. She paused. We're weak. We're fragile. We die easily. But we don't quit. Ever. Epilogue. 6 months later, Zithra received a classified transmission. The Human Watch Station had reported unusual activity. The Perseverance had changed course. Not by much. Just a few degrees. Enough to keep it drifting away from populated space. Away from the places where the innocent lived. Even in their transformed state, even fighting an endless war against an entity beyond comprehension, the crew of the Perseverance was still protecting people. Still human in the ways that mattered most. Zithra filed the report and marked it for permanent archival. Someday, when the younger species asked why the galaxy feared and respected humanity in equal measure, she wanted this story to survive. The story of 43 humans who became monsters to fight something worse. Who sacrificed everything, even themselves, for people they would never meet. Who proved that humanity wasn't about flesh and blood. It was about the choice to stand guard in the darkness. Forever.